waiting for Katinka.
I feel like our faces are not aligned.
They're not. So I think that you should turn your camera vertically.
Okay.
So
But I'm not sure it can
Hello, Earth Energy Healing, and what's up, David?
And you can't turn your camera the other way?
I can turn it the other way, but most people who are watching, I mean, I guess they can flip their phone, but Instagram's usually designed to be seen vertically.
Let me try this.
Yeah, we'll probably want to do it vertically.
Yeah?
Don't you be laughing, dude. We figuring it out. This is how you figure it out.
Okay, we're good. All right. Good. Are you ready?
I am ready. All right. Hello, everybody. Glad you're here. It's going to be a good one.
Welcome to the New Earth Visionary Show. I'm here with Johnny Wild, my good friend, who is ready to share about his passion. And yeah, so can you introduce yourself a bit, share about your spiritual journey and how you've become like the person that you are today and doing what you do today?
Sure. I'm Johnny Wild, and real name is Johnny Armstead. And, I started my spiritual journey was just a journey of trying to feel better. I was tired of feeling sort of like lost, confused, and lacking in self-confidence and anxious. And I was in mechanical engineering school at the time. And I just saw myself like continuing to repeat the same mistakes like over and over and over again, just like try harder and life will get better, and just buckle down and life will get better, and push forward and life will get better. And it didn't. It kept repeating the same cycles of like stress and then collapse, and then stress and then collapse, and stress and collapse. And I had this like nagging feeling in the back of my mind for like years during school when I was like 18 to 21, and I was just like, something's wrong, but I can't figure out what it is. Like something's not right. Like this like feeling in the back of my mind. And I was like, man, I cannot figure out what it is. And then I stumbled across this video one day. Sean Anker did a TED Talk called The Secret to Happy Work. And in it, he talked about 5 positive habits that people did for a month, for 30 days. And then after they did them, they self-reported happiness increases to like 30%, something around there. And so I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And one of the positive habits was meditation. So I read a book on meditation called Mindfulness in Plain English. And it was a breakdown of like mindfulness meditation. I started doing that, and like 2 to 3 days in, like my entire world started changing. And like I was crying, like riding my bicycle to school at like how beautiful the world was. Like I could see more sharply. I could hear more sharply. I remember walking up the stone steps up to my school building, and I could just like hear the reverberation like echoing off of the walls. And I remember being able to like see the brick and like all the texture in the brick that I never noticed before. And I was just like tripping out at like everything that I had like never, like it was like the Matrix, it's like my eyes just like being opened up to a whole new world. And that was intense. And so mine was just a journey of like trying to figure out things to feel better. And I was never trying to be spiritual or anything like that. Just meditation was the only thing that ever like made me feel deeply better. Everything else, like, give a little dopamine spike, but it'd be temporary and then it'd be over. And then you'd be back to square one. So meditation was the only thing that deeply shifted my experience. Yeah. and really made positive changes that actually lasted. And then and I could keep going, but I did concentration meditation for 1.5 years, where that's a lot different than typical meditation, where you sort of just like allow things to arise and pass in your consciousness, like clouds floating through the sky. And a concentration is like you picked one object of concentration. I did the sound of my breath, and you sit there and just like laser focus on it. And with the sound of the breath, like as you listen to it, and you try to have like unbreaking concentration of like only like hearing the sound, and like there's nothing else in your conscious awareness except the sound. And so you're sitting there, and then as you can hear the sound and you get that unbroken stream of like focus and consciousness, then you make your focal point smaller and smaller and smaller. So with the sound, then you would like pick out like one frequency, because the sound of the breath is like a lot of different frequencies. And then you could hear like one like particular whistling sound or something. And then you would just like follow that until you get into these like states of super concentration and absorption, where you'd like basically get blissed out and turned into a supercomputer. And you realize like your brain before was like a swarm of bees, and you didn't realize it was like a swarm of bees. Like the sound of your consciousness and thinking and daily experience was like this hum of this swarm of bees, and you didn't realize it was like that before, because the sound was always there. And so
how long can you hold this like state of concentration?
Like without it breaking at all? Like the best I ever got was like maybe close to a minute. Yeah, because it's hard. It's hard. I used to do like 40 minutes like every day of just like, I'd sit there, I'd just take a shower and put on like antiperspirant, and I'd be sitting there like trying to concentrate so hard that like I'd start sweating out of my antiperspirant. My whole body would like heat up, and I'd sit there and start sweating, just sitting there like trying to just like super intense. And yeah, I did that for 1.5 years, and I would get into these like blissed out states where I could start reading my engineering textbooks as though they were like novels. Like it was easy. I was just reading it like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. When normally like I'd have to read them over and over for like 5 times and just be super confused and stressed out, like trying to see what they're saying. And this time I was like, oh yes, of course. Like just like I was just like so blissed out and like so clear, and I'd be like talking to people, and I'd just be like walking around like super floaty and just like life is perfect, and I found the perfect answer and the perfect solution. And concentration meditation is tight. Not a lot of people do that. It has a lot more short-term effects. Like the short-term effects are a lot better. Mindfulness meditation has better long-term effects, but it takes longer to get a return on your investment of time. Yeah, but yeah, so I did that, and then about 1.5 years in, I started plateauing with how much my life was changing. I got like super productive, and like my grades improved and all that stuff, and that was great. But then I had to do the same concentration meditation every morning, and like I wrote like 3 things I was grateful for and gratitude habits, and I would do stuff like that, and like compassion meditations, like in the shower every morning, like saying nice things to myself in the shower and shit. And I was doing that for about 1.5 years, but the thing is like it would make my day so great, but it would take me like 1.5 hours to 2 hours every morning, and if I stopped doing it, I would revert back to the same place. Yeah. And so then I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat, a Vipassana retreat, a mindfulness retreat, and they have them like for free all over the nation, or all over the world actually. They're called Goenka retreats, and I went to one of those. And they did mindfulness and awareness and all stuff like that. And so about like 5 to 7 days into this 10-day silent retreat, it was gender segregated. You couldn't read, you couldn't write, you couldn't exercise. All you could do is eat, sleep, meditate. And I did that. And every day I got less and less sleep because my body got pumped more and more full of energy and like these adrenaline responses, because I would get so concentrated into paying attention to how my breath felt in my chest that it would get so shallow to where it like stopped. And then I'd be in like this hyper state of concentration, and all of a sudden it would go boom and like explode, and my body would get like filled with adrenaline. And I go, oh my God. And then it would take me like 20 to 30 minutes of like sitting there and like trying to like come back and focus again and let things relax and be chill. And then I'd go boom, boom. And so for days, like these just bombs were like going off of my body, and I would get less and less sleep and more delirious every day. and these crazy hallucinations as I was like walking around, like see like thousands of spiders falling in front of my face and shit. It was super intense while I was walking around. Yeah. And then like about 8 days in, I was walking around and my knees got super shaky. About like 4 a.m. in the morning, I woke up and I had this sensation of being completely encapsulated in like almost like this pill. And it was crazy. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to my meditation instructor. He just told me, like, you know, hold up, like drop the anchor in the storm if things get too crazy. And so dropping the anchor means coming back to the sensations of the breath. And so I was sitting there like trying to feel the sensations of the breath by going like this, by going, because I was fucking disappearing from this reality, man. And my knees got super shaky and I was walking around trying to feel my feet on the ground just to stay in this reality. And then I ended up like my knees collapsed and I fell on the ground, and like for 10 to 15 minutes the center of my chest, just like from the center of my chest there was this insane like jerking, and it was like I was being pulled from the center of my chest for like 10 to 15 minutes just super powerfully.
This was like your heart chakra activating?
I don't know, it was more like it felt like my source energy was just like exploding from like the depth of like the source of my body, and like my body around it was just sort of like ragdolling as it was like being pulled and like shaken loose from like its hibernation and its slumber. And in that experience, I was having this experience, you know, like this vision where I was holding onto the cargo netting of an old wooden ship, you know, however many hundreds of years ago, and like this crazy storm, just sheets of rain that you can't even see through, and just wind that's threatening to blow me off. And I just had this voice, and it was like, Johnny, no matter what, don't let go. No matter what you do, don't let go. And I'm like holding, like my arms are like wrapped inside of the net, and I'm like, you know, and I just had like these fucking super calloused like seaman hands, and it was super intense. And that rocked me for like 15 minutes, and I was just like holding on for dear life to not get like blown off the ship. And then eventually the energy stopped rocking me and jerking me around. I stopped convulsing like slowly, and then like in the vision, everything started relaxing, and like the waves started like chilling out, and like the clouds started to part, and like sunlight started to pour through the clouds. And that happened at the same time in real life when dawn started breaking at the retreat that I was at. And like it chilled out, and then like I'm like relaxed, and like the storm is over, and like it's like that peace after the storm where you're sort of like wigged out, and you're like, and it's like almost like serenely calm. And I remember going into the cafeteria, and just like everyone started pouring into the cafeteria who had woken up, and I was just like, I guess it's time to eat some cereal. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
How long time did it take you to process that? Like, are you still processing?
I don't. That's a hard question to answer because that experience gave me a Kundalini awakening. So it exploded like all of this dormant like electricity out of my body. And like, so it's been 3.5 years now, and that hasn't stopped. And so like all of this like dormant like life force energy, like electricity, exploded from my body. And that's 3.5 years ago that happened. And ever since then, it's just been pumping through my body, pumping. It was like the dam broke of like the subconscious and like the spiritual psyche and your like deep power and all that stuff. And so the dam broke. And then ever since then, like my body has just been like purging every repressed emotion I've ever had. And then also like every repressed emotion and like past life shit from like, I guess like my ancestors past and shit. And that's been just like locked in the cellular memory that gets passed down generation to generation. And it's been fucking crazy. So I don't even know if I can answer that I've processed that, because it's just like I'm processing every day, and like every day like I'm healing and growing and learning and like returning. And like the more that I clear out of my nervous system, essentially like I strengthen my container. It's like nervous system weightlifting, like nervous system powerlifting, like spiritual power. So like the more of these weights that you lift that were stuck in your nervous system, yeah, it's like imagine like your whole body like is covered in a pile of weights, and like those are all the emotions that you've never dealt with. And so then slowly, by like piece by piece, you take the weights off and you move them off you, take the weights off and move them off you. And so in this process, like you're getting super fucking like strong and yoked as fuck at like being able to like lift weights. And at the same time, you're also becoming stronger because you're taking these weights off of your body. And so that's been my process, is like my energy system, my confidence, my ability to like stay focused and like in source and like run larger amounts of like electricity and life force energy through my body has been increasing as I've been basically forced to spiritually and electrically power lift for like 3.5 years. And it's been fucking crazy brutal. I wouldn't recommend anyone do it on accident like I did, but but there's ways to do it where you don't have to do it, where it just like blitzkriegs your ass for like, like 3.5 years. So yeah, that's my story, and that's where I am now. And then I just got to a point at the beginning of this year where I was just starting to like come out of this cave, going through the dark night of the soul, which is just this intense purge. And I know, but for the people watching out there, dark night of the soul is just like all these repressed emotions like purge out of you, all these dark energies to make way for like you being like a new light being, connected, full of love, all fucking enlightened and shit. And so yeah, so my dark night of the soul finally eased up after 3 years at the beginning of this year, just enough to where I was like, okay, I'm ready to like start helping people. And because I've learned so much, and now I can see into people so clearly, and I can see like everything that's happening with their emotions, and like in like every micro fluctuation of like their thought and their emotions, and where they are and what's happening to their energy, and where their energy is blocked up that's preventing them from being a strong person. And so I decided to start working with that. And so since the beginning of the year, I've been taking on clients and helping them deeply transform and become like energetically fucking powerful, confident, like connected motherfuckers. So yeah.
And beautiful.
Yeah.
And can you give us an example of how you help your clients? You work like mainly with the masculine energy? Yeah,
I typically work with men, although I did just take on my first female client. So I am willing to work with them. The nervous system stuff works the same, essentially. It's just like what sort of like parental sort of like energies like are a little bit more helpful for women and men, and like how do they interact in like a more conducive way. But so yeah, mostly with men though. And essentially what I've done for my clients and what I focused on doing is like reconnecting them to their power. So every repressed emotion is stored in the body, and it's typically stored as muscular tension. And so this is why people have like tense jaws, and depressed people have like the, the forward rounded shoulders and they're slumped. It's because they have like an immense amount of tension that's like in the chest and in this deltoid that's like pulling the shoulder forward, and then like all this like dead area, this like repressed anger, like in the back, like in the upper back. Like if you've ever seen a cat get super angry, or dogs, like you see that hair that stands up on the back of their neck. The humans are the same way. So like that depressed people are actually full of anger, that's just like locked into their nervous system. And so their back is like always like that. And so then they develop this hunchback thing. So anyways, repressed emotion is repressed energy, and it's stored along your body in muscular tension and arrested breathing patterns, like frozen breathing patterns. So what I do with my clients is I go in and I can see like where they're blocked up, like what parts of their whole body that they're not breathing into, like where their muscular tension is, and I start bringing their awareness to it. And where awareness goes, energy flows. And so literally just by moving their awareness to the sensations of these sort of like dormant or like tense parts of their body, energy will start percolating and flowing into the area and start like making it come alive and start like unleashing all this repressed emotion. And, every repressed emotion is basically like part of your power that's locked away from you. So the more that you can clear these repressed emotions and bring them up to the surface of your consciousness to then be let go of, the more that you're returning your nervous system to full power. It's sort of like rebuilding an engine in a car. It's like you're building it to the point to where it's yeah, she's asking you to be closer to the mic. That's funny. She's actually not really talking. but yeah, so yeah, I like clear their nervous system and make them just like way more powerful and connected, and like connect them to their self-belief, and their whole life is changing as far as like how much more confident they feel, like how much more effortlessly they can connect to pleasure as they live their entire day. Like instead of doing things in order to feel good, doing things starts feeling good. And so then their whole life starts becoming feeling good rather than everyone always working so that I can then go home and eat the ice cream, you know, or hustling or doing the things like that terrify me and overwhelm me so that I can then have like the nice big house in like 20 or 30 years, right? So instead of that, the process of getting the house, the process of, you know, talking to the person you're attracted to that you're scared to, you know, the process of exercising, like all of that starts to become like its own pleasure. And so now your whole life like becomes more and more like feelings of pleasure and confidence and power effortlessly radiating through your body. So those are the transformations that I've been performing or helping my clients gain. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's insane. So much information, like.
Yeah. I was just like pumping it out there for all you guys at home. Yeah, it's a lot.
Could you go more into details with the masculine energy and how it looks like in today's society, modern society, and how, like, what do we need to do to heal it and rebalance?
Yeah. Masculine and feminine energies are really interesting. So essentially in Western culture, we've been conditioned as, I'm going to speak, you know, just for men for here for a second. We've been conditioned to, in our school system, really sit down, shut up, stop moving, listen to the authority figures, and then really trained into being a supplicating, sycophantic little good boy, where it's like, where you get patted on the head, you know, you're patted on the head. It's like, oh, look at you. You made a B. You made an, oh, look at how you did your fractions. Oh, you're so good. And then when they start like yelling and running around the room, they're like, send a note home like, this is bad. You know, you're not supposed to run around. You're not supposed to yell. You know, you're not supposed to hit. You're not supposed to fight, all that stuff. And listen, of course, you know, anyone with half a brain can see, like, you know, you need to learn when it's okay to hit someone and when it's okay not to hit someone. And, you know, and you need to learn, like, when is it time to sort of like sacrifice your individual wants for the needs of the collective, in this case, like a classroom, so that they can learn together. Okay, sure, that's the case, but they're not really taught the opposite direction. You know, if they're lucky, they'll get into some athletics, and then hopefully, like, they'll be able to, like, you know, connect to their bodies in that way. But you know, it's just in general, there's a pattern of Western culture disconnecting people from the awareness of their bodies. And like what I said before, where attention goes, energy flows. So if attention is never directed towards your body, that means that you're never directing energy into your body. So everyone's bodies are running at like 20%, 15%, 10% of like their true capacities of like what they could really feel and what they could really experience as far as like pleasure and pride and love and connectedness. And so the entire education system, all the awareness is put towards the critical analytical mind, almost all of it. You know, there's some arts programs and things like that. But even in those, there's no programs that like directly direct you to like feeling into your body and really like paying attention to the way that your body feels and like asking like, what is your body telling you is true? And what is your body telling you is like the most right thing for you to do? Like there's no like intuition, intuition strengthening, you know, classes in our sort of culture. And so we're running around like operating on like 10%. And this is true for men and women, but especially men are even taught more to disconnect from their bodies. If they feel pain, then, you know, stiffen their jaw and then block it off and walk it off. And, you know, if they're about to cry, that's weak. Block that off. Tension the chest. Suck that shit up. You know, sucking that shit up is that's tensioning the body and blocking yourself off from that. And so over time, you know, thousands of repetitions of teaching men to disconnect from how they feel and devalidating its importance and being told that crying is not important and being soft is weak and not valuable and thousands of repetitions from this growing up, you know, and your culture is surrounding you, telling you that this is what you need to do is block yourself off from all this. Well, it's creating a generation of men who are disempowered. They can't feel power running through their body. and therefore they feel no confidence because they've been trained to sort of like react to the world and always be like reacting and trying to do a good job for the people who are above them and gonna like give them out some peanuts of good grades or like a little good job and like a little good money and stuff like that, and like just get the good job and have your house and make your wife, happy wife, happy life, you know, like, and fuck that shit, man. Fuck that fucking bullshit. That's some fucking stupid bullshit, man. And, you know, and so like all these guys, like, and then there's no real like masculine like leaders in our culture like who actually embody like a fully developed like masculine male who's not just masculine in the qualities of like, you know, having that heat and that fire and that warrior and like we're gonna hustle and we're gonna do this, like that is important, but like also being able to like come into this wizened like grandfatherly energy where the grandfather has been the warrior, and then as he's gotten older he's learned to connect deeply to the needs of the entire tribe and family, and he's learned that as strong as he expands outwards, or as much as he needs to connect inwards to his deepest like sort of like almost helplessness and frailty and gentleness and tenderness. And so he's learned that as far as he's grown this way in his warrior masculine leadership strength, he needs to come into the infinitesimal gentleness and tenderness, and he needs to embody both of those things at the same time in order to really be a whole man who is offering everything to himself and to the world that he needs to be offering. And without that, there's always going to be this feeling of lack and incompleteness in the center of his chest and his belly. That's really that his family feels, that his wife feels, that his children feel, because that disconnection gets radiated outwards. And so until men reconnect to their full power and like every part of their consciousness and every part of their body and honoring all of it, and knowing what is the time for gentleness, what is the time for the masculine fucking penetrating strength and the blinders and just doing what it takes and sacrificing their body until they can access all of that, our whole society and everyone in it is going to be limp and maimed and injured, and we're going to be sort of like stumbling around with like, you know, one eye blind and the other one barely able to see and like barely able to breathe, and then all the while we're trained to pretend that we all feel great. And how's your day? Oh, it's great, Ted. How's your day? Oh, it's so great. And then in the meantime, like your kid is like, you know, huffing paint in the back of the house, and your wife like hates you but doesn't know how to verbalize it, and so she just slowly poisons like anything that you could do to actually bring success to the family, because she's filled with so much black resentment of men who've wounded her, and she's filled with so much black resentment of a society that taught her to not express herself so she doesn't come off as a bitch. You know, like, and so it's just this giant like poison thing. And so society is basically in an emotional dark age, and so are men in a spiritual dark age. And we're limping along. We're so technologically advanced. Our rational idea, our egoic concept of ourselves is that like we're just fucking like blasting off. And, you know, technologically that's true, but spiritually and emotionally we're like, you know, we're like injured 3-year-olds who can't play with the rest of the kids at the playground and are like walking around by themselves and like have like a broken ankle and like their wrist hurts really bad and like they have like, you know, like some sort of like just like horrible rash on their skin that makes everyone else not want to touch them. And so like everyone's like that to various degrees, because we all have these repressed emotions and things inside of our nervous system. So getting back to how that ties into the masculine thing, it's like, you know, yeah, men can't show up to their true power because they've been conditioned away from paying attention to how their bodies feel and treating that as valuable. And so until that tide is reversed, men are going to be walking around as caricatures of men. Either the false machismo concept, like the sort of like Donald Trump concept of like, you know, like I'm untouchable and nothing that you say matters to me at all, and I'm not going to consider your perspective by any means because just flippantly I don't have to, you know, and in fact it feels good not to consider anything that anyone who disagrees with me says. And of course that's even more valuable than the majority of men who are walking around with like the shoulders slumped, and they've been conditioned to think that as long as you don't cause any sort of like painful emotion in another person, then you're a good little boy. You're a good little boy. Make everyone happy. Never hurt another person's feelings. And so then everyone's walking around like, I'm good, because goodness is weakness. And I'm so weak, So I'm so good. Do you love me yet? Look how weak I am, baby. Do you love me? Do you love me? I'm so weak for you. Do you love me? And so it's sick. And so this is the general masculine consciousness. People have conflated weakness for value and like having no spine for value, or they flipped into the opposite direction of just complete disconnection, psychopathic machismo, and then that's value. So, you know, something's got to give for men in the masculine psyche, and even women's conception of the masculine is it's wounded within themselves, and then they come into these like false sort of like wounded sort of like archetypal caricature-esque versions of masculinity. So yeah, so things need to improve, and that's sort of like the state of masculinity in our culture today. And I'm here to help fucking fix that shit. Let's fix it. Fuck. Let's do the work. Time to put the boots on and do the work. So yeah. Yep.
So this show is like about creating and activating like a timeline for the highest vibrational future.
Okay.
And so if you how would you see like a future of us taking care of the young boys and like giving them the opportunity to grow into this divine masculine energy and avoiding, you know,
avoiding this outcome of this like this sick, like incomplete sort of wounded psyche person outcome. Yeah, so really fundamentally from an early age, you know, kids are already sort of like emotional geniuses. They just can't verbalize it. They're rationally they don't have the tools and the language to be able to describe the experiences they have, but emotionally they're basically like geniuses. Hello everyone who joined recently. What's up? Good to meet you. So they're emotional geniuses. The depth and the nuance to what they feel and energetically what they feel in their surroundings and how they feel the intentions of other people, and just to the nuance and like the specificity that they feel, that it's amazing. And like their instinctual, intuitional abilities to release like neurotic tension and like emotion that they have like pent up in their system of like anger or frustration, they're so good at that. Like that's what a temper tantrum is. A temper tantrum is a full body experience of releasing all of the repressed emotion and neurotic tension of like all that negative emotion, the banging on the ground and the kick in the legs. Like that's a complete release of all of the repressed anger and built up frustration and tension. And what I tell people is the last time that you had a full-blown temper tantrum is the last time that your nervous system was even close to healthy.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, because if you can't access that, like even us, even people who are having these Kundalini awakenings, which are just, huge purges of our repressed emotions and repressed energies like coming out so that our nervous system can be restored to, honestly, I think where it was as a child, except just more developed because we processed more. So we've lifted more weights, but basically coming back to that serene state of like, yay, I could play if I want. I could go do hard things if I want. I want to dig a big hole. I want to build a house. I want to do construction. I want to make an art project. I want to go help out. I want to go do a lemonade stand. All of those spontaneous, inspired things that children would just like to do according to work or play or creation or challenge or any of that stuff. It's just really important. So, So get me back. Where was I? Oh, so the last time that you were able to have a temper tantrum is the last time that you were able to really fully discharge all these neurotic tensions that could allow you to come back into being a whole person who has all of their power and confidence and self-trust available to them. So what we need to do for children growing up is, and boys also, is have dedicated time where they learn about emotions, they learn about what they're feeling, they learn about when is it a proper time to contain an emotion, and so there's a difference between containment and repression. And so in containment, you can actually let an emotion completely sort of like radiate out, and it fills your body and your energy field. And so like, for instance, like I can, I'll show you a little bit of a difference, but so if I repress anger, it's more like this, like, my hands go in and it's dark and it's like really collapsed and you can feel sort of like the heaviness of it. And then if I allow that anger to sort of just like fill my body, but not necessarily like project it at you, then it's going to be more like this, and it's going to fill my body. And you're going to hear these sort of like implied, don't mess with me. You're going to be safe if you're over there, but here's my boundaries. I'm not going to come at you. I'm not going to lash out at you, but if you keep coming at me, there's an implied sort of threat there and an implied boundary that you're creating. And so then that's containment of anger. That's allowing it to flow through your body. That's honoring that it's there. That's not mitigating it in order to like make someone else feel more comfortable in your collapse. And then they also need to learn when is it time to act in their anger, where they're saying, hey, no. And then you're coming at the person. You're saying, this is not okay. This is how my anger is going to show up. And if you keep pressing, then the physical violence may happen. And then needing to be trained in martial arts so they can learn how to guide that sort of like that anger energy through their body. And so that's one example. I used anger as an example. But for every single emotion, you know, we need a complete foundational overhaul of how human beings understand emotions and how they understand their value and how they understand like emotional awareness. Like we're just emotionally like completely unaware, and it's just like it's horrible. We're so far behind. We're like in, you know, we're in pre-K with like our emotional awareness, if that. You know, probably worse than that. So there needs to be dedicated time where children learn about their emotions. They learn what to do with them. They learn how to use them in order to empower them. They learn how emotions are supposed to be a guidance system to get you to guide yourself to things and situations and people in your life that are going to be helpful to you, and away from situations that are going to be harmful to you. And so we need to have dedicated time where people increase their emotional health and awareness. And also learn these energetic processes of how to process emotion, how to heal, how to take care of your own emotional needs, how to give space for others to take care of their own emotional needs. Like, it's, even as I say this, I can hear people who would watch this just being like, that is so far outside of like what we teach our children now that it almost sounds ludicrous to even bring that up as like something that children should do, and there should be classes on it, and like it should go all the way up through primary education, because it's literally so far outside of what we do now that it's almost considered like foo-foo or woo-woo or floofy or something. But it couldn't be farther from the truth. It's like, do you really want, and this is what we have now, do you really want a generation of men who don't know what to do with their anger? Is that what you want? Because we've seen the outcomes of that. The school shootings in America are a great example of what happens when men don't know what to do with their anger and have no outlet for it, and don't know how to honor it, and have been told that it doesn't matter. And it just builds up that pressure cooker. And so men either kill themselves. The suicide rate for men is about 4 times higher than it is for women, although y'all attempt it more, interestingly enough. Y'all attempt it more, but just fail more often because y'all use softer methods than we do. We tend to go for more sort of like obliterative methods. Y'all tend to use like more like pills, and we tend to use more like jumping from heights and bullets and things that are harder to come back from. So more violent means. We tend to use more violent means. But yeah, it's like, do you really want a generation of men who don't know how to connect to love, who don't know how to connect to care from a place of being powerful? Do you want a generation of men who don't know what to do with their anger and just build that up, and it just bleeds out to their wife and their family and their loved ones unconsciously, and just like this poison just like bleeds out of them and sort of like grows them every day? Is like, is that what you want? Because if that's what we want, we're just going to keep doing things the way that we've been doing them. Otherwise, we need to focus on increasing society's mental health and awareness and energetic health and awareness. Yes. And instituting these practices as things that we do, just like brushing our teeth, daily morning meditation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just sitting there and allowing your musculature to relax. Like, that's what I recommend anyone watching this who doesn't frequently meditate. I imagine a lot of you do. Following Katinka, she's quite the but you see the tree coming out of the top of her head, and but like there needs to be culturally indoctrinated and recommended energetic and emotional hygiene practices. So daily meditation in the morning or at night, and just like, and even more like gently described and clearly described, like, you know, just a period of time where you have no distractions, or even like a gentle music with no vocals to it. And you just sit there and allow your breath to become soft, and then allow your musculature to relax, and just sit there and allow yourself to let go of all the have to, and they got to do this and these deadlines. And just for a period of time every day, 5, 10 minutes, whatever, anything's going to help you. 30 seconds will help you. 10 seconds of just letting yourself breathe will help you. And so anything that you're going to do consistently, even if that's literally 10 seconds every morning, you set a little beep on your watch or your phone that it goes beep, and then you condition yourself to go, oh yeah. That's the open window and the open door to a new world where you start to feel better. You're able to love more and more genuinely. You're able to connect more. You're able to care more. You're able to be more aware of what's going on in your surroundings, what your impact is on the people you love and the world around you. You're able to be stronger. You're able to feel more confidence in yourself effortlessly, not a false confidence, but just like a confidence where it's not even, you don't even have a second thought. It's like, oh, I feel this, so of course it's this way. And I'm willing to hear someone else tell me it's a different way. But I feel quite strongly, just effortlessly, that I know what's going on. And this is what I'm going to do about it. Yeah. And so we need emotional and energetic hygiene practices that we use every single day. And in a gentle way, not in another warrior way. But sometimes you have to have willpower in a short term, but in more of like a surrendering way. And just like, can I give myself like a little second to myself to just take it easy on myself every single day? So the same, you brush your teeth, and that's from a place of self-care. The same thing, you brush your body with awareness, and that's from a place of self-care.
And then, and it comes from a place of self-care and not this distraction, like, well, I'm too overloaded, so I'm just gonna brainwash myself with TV or eat cake and candy or our partying and stuff like that, but instead shifting into doing something that's valuable for yourself in the long term. Absolutely. And
even something else that I've found out is, like, you know, so many people, because of their poor energetic awareness of their bodies and like what they're really capable of as far as like challenges and stress, they really have developed these all or nothing mentalities. So it's either like, I'm either meditating and I'm like, I'm doing it 20 minutes every day, bro. I haven't missed a day in 30 days. And like, if I did miss a day, I'd probably punch myself in the face, because that's weak. That's weak if I don't for 20 minutes every day be nice to myself. That's weak. And it deserves attack. You know, it deserves self-attack if I'm not nice to myself. Why aren't you nice to yourself, you idiot? You idiot. Oh my God. It's so absurd. And I'm coming from a place of like, I was like that, I didn't verbalize the idiot thing, but I would physically, I would self-attack and I wouldn't even be aware of it. So what I learned is like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, you can even, like, if you're watching TV because that helps you decompress, like, that doesn't need to be judged. You just need to be consciously aware that your body is seeking a relaxation through that distraction. And then now that you're conscious of it and that you've given it some value and you're like, oh, yeah, this is just because I want to relax a little bit. And I do want to sort of like have a reprieve from the stresses of my life. And so from that place, now that you're conscious of it and you know that it's you trying to help yourself and doing something good for yourself, then you can say, how can I make this like even just a 5% more supportive to me? This thing that maybe it's not the optimal way, for the most ideal way for me to come into self-care, but how can I make it like 5% more self-care like? And so for that, it's like you're watching TV and could I turn down the volume like a couple notches? And then maybe the next night, could I turn down the volume a couple notches more? Right? Even could I take the colors on my screen and could I start making them like more and more black and white? like as I go. Yeah. And like, cause I realized like, I'd be like, oh, I'm not meditating enough or whatever. And then I'd be addicted to the internet. Like that would typically be my thing. I would spend a whole bunch of time on Reddit or Facebook scrolling and stuff like that. And honestly, I could never really let go of those compulsions until I stopped judging those compulsions and started coming into communion with those compulsions and realizing, those aren't addictions per se. The way I like to frame them is that they are external regulating mechanisms, and we're just seeking something outside of our nervous system to help us regulate and make us feel a little bit better. And so really these addictions or compulsions are actually attempts at self-care that are unconscious, and that we won't allow ourselves to see as self-care because they're bad and we're not supposed to be distracted. Like that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And if you keep shaming and like fucking like, making yourself feel bad for these things that are really an attempt at you taking care of yourself, it just forms this like corrupt little self-shaming sort of like complex inside your body. And you can never actually let go of these less effective coping mechanisms that are attempts at your own self-care. So that was the biggest thing that started transforming my relationship with all these things that are distractions and compulsions and addictions and bad, is realizing like, oh, and like seeing myself as my inner child that's just scared and overwhelmed and overstressed and just wants to collapse, and saying like, oh, you're watching your cartoons because you want to feel better. You just want to feel better. You're just overwhelmed. And so if you can start doing that with every part of your life, like, oh, I'm looking at Facebook right now because like I'm so stressed out. And like, that's okay. And maybe like you can even use Facebook from a place of like allowing relaxation to come in your body as you're scrolling, and like paying attention a little more to your breath, like as you're like looking at like these pictures of like what your friends are doing, and it's sort of like, how can you just slightly where you are, honor where you are completely, understand everything that you're doing now is your attempt to take care of yourself or the people that you love. Every single emotion, every single way that you treat yourself, even your self-attack, is an attempt at taking care of yourself. And like really that's the foundation of what I teach, is like every single emotion is trying to help you or the ones that you love. It just may not be doing that. But in the recognition of knowing that it's trying to, you can come back into communion with how you treat those parts of yourself, and it's like two brothers who are fighting. You have an angry brother, and then you have the empathetic brother, and they don't get along because the empathetic brother is like, you hurt people's feelings, angry brother, right? And then angry brother is like, you care too much about their feelings, and that's going to lead us astray and make us make bad decisions that are going to be bad for the village, right? At a certain point, you got to not care about how they feel and just take decisive action. And that's what the angry brother says, right? And then they can't get along because they can't see each other's point of view. But what I do is I tell them, every emotion has a value in a particular certain situation, or else it wouldn't exist in the human consciousness, because we evolved to have these emotions, and obviously they helped our ancestors survive, or else they would have been basically let go of through our evolution. So every single emotion has its place, but it's coming into communion with knowing that, and really making these emotions all different characters on our sort of like board of advisors in our mind and in our subconscious. So it's like, now can the angry brother and the empathetic brother see where they could help each other? And from your like king or queen consciousness, can you see every emotion as a member of your board of advisors who's coming to you with a certain perspective because they're loyal and they're trying to help you in the community? So angry brother comes to you and says, people are coming, there's invading hordes. And then empathetic brother says, people are at our border and they need our help and they're upset, and we can love them and help them to feel better and welcome them into our community. Right, and like this analogy is just like the refugees at the American sort of like border wall. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's the exact same thing. It's literally our society's fractured consciousness. People who have identified with the empath, or people who have identified with strong boundaries, and I'm not going to take any bullshit. Right, and then they can't see each other's value because their identity complexes are incomplete, and they've fractured themselves off from being able to see the value of the other emotion. And so what we really want to do is have these parts of ourselves, the empathy brother and the angry brother, the boundary setting brother, the warrior brother, say, okay, so say I'm angry brother now, right? It's like, say, I see how coming to someone with softness could actually disarm them and turn an enemy into an ally and a friend. And then Empathy Brother says, I see how if I'm too soft in the face of someone who is too far in the hole of darkness and violence, that could allow the borders that keep my family safe, the walls that keep our tribe safe, to be overrun by an invading horde that wishes nothing but dark, death, and destruction upon us and our culture and our value systems that really protect our society and our offspring. And so, like, until that conversation can happen within you, until that conversation can happen on a collective consciousness, people are going to be walking around as like incomplete human beings, and they're going to be constantly at war within themselves. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, the world is divided because man lays in broken heaps, divided within himself.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful. And yeah, so we need to take every emotion. I gave you 2 emotions, and ask ourselves, in what situation could this emotion be trying to help me? And how is it trying to help me? And really reframe like every part of your conscious experience as, how is this trying to help me? And then also giving permission, once you've heard it and honored it, you've honored that member of your council coming to you on bended knee as your king self, saying, my king, my lord, this is what we must do. And I beg you to heed my call and listen. And you as the king, you're sitting there wise and relaxed in your consciousness, hearing everything, allowing it all to fill you, being imperturbed, because you're a container for all human experience and emotion. And you can fully honor the voice and what that is, and the lesson that it's bringing, while also giving it permission to be let go of and making a different decision that's actually going to help you even more. Does that make sense?
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
It's like you're like channeling insane information at the moment. I'm just enjoying.
Yeah.
The viewers are enjoying as well, receiving the transmission.
Yeah, it's intensely powerful. It's so powerful, and it's like it's the transformation that we all need. And until we have leaders that have come into communion with all these different emotions and parts of themselves and learned how to honor each other and rebuilt the alliance of all emotions, until that has happened, we're never going to get good leaders. Because we're only going to elect leaders and seek after leaders who reflect our internal state of division and self-attack and incompleteness and sort of like archetypal, sort of like dark energy possession.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing too, is in fact, not only will we elect those leaders, but we seek them out, because the way that the subconscious heals is via projection. If you won't allow yourself to be conscious of your wounds and where things hurt inside of you by giving yourself the space continuously to look inside and listen to what's going on, if you don't do that, then through your day, the way that the subconscious sort of trickily heals you without you knowing is through projection. And so you literally seek out situations that recreate your traumatic wounds in order for your subconscious to be able to recreate them so that you may react to them in a stronger, more empowered way this time. And so literally, like if the whole culture feels disempowered, then they elect Donald Trump, who is basically the guy who says, you know what, I'm not doing this false political correctness, niceness thing anymore. I'm going to tell you how it is, and I don't care how you feel about it. And so literally, because of people's like helplessness that they won't allow themselves to feel, they're giving their power to someone who is they're not enlightened. They're just above them. So Donald Trump, in fact, in my opinion, is above the majority of the population's consciousness level, at least in terms of his like warrior ability and his ability to like set proper boundaries and actually care about what he feels and what he thinks. I think his consciousness level, it's unconscious though, that's the problem. He's not conscious of, that's the problem. So whenever things are not conscious, it's like one of the members of your board of advisors completely usurps the king. And now that one emotion becomes the king. And that's dangerous because we need every single member of the board of advisors to have their voice to choose the best thing to do for the entire society. If you just have the angry warrior guy as the king, that's a bad move. It's a better move than having the weak guy as the king. It's better than that is having like the false sort of like politically correct weak guy who's just gonna in the public, he's gonna say the things that make everyone feel nice and good and safe. I feel like Obama was really like this in a lot of ways. It's like he's just so charismatic, and he was just, and I'm not saying he's a bad guy, like I don't know, I'm not going to get deep into politics, but I do think like he knew he's very good at charismatically getting the populace to sort of like agree with him and thinking that things are all hunky-dory, but behind the scenes doing all this like really dark stuff. Like really, really dark stuff, and like drone striking Libya, and then like just like carpet bombing, and like, yeah, just lots of stuff where just like behind the scenes, it was nothing like he was presenting. And so, you know, it's better to have like a flagrantly aggressive leader than a sort of like snakily deceitful leader who's like nice at the front. So actually that's an evolution in consciousness, in my opinion, but it's not anywhere near the wise, what they call the philosopher king, because that's what we need, is the philosopher king to really lead us to the promised land. The one who can hear all emotions and who can respect all of these perspectives, and who knows exactly what to do and what voice to listen to at the right time, because he's not possessed by these wounded sort of like identity complexes that are born out of like repressed trauma that he won't let himself see.
Wow. Okay, I think we've have enough for the consciousness to process.
Yeah. That was a lot. That was a lot for day one, for lesson one of the masculine revamping that our culture needs. Yeah, emotional health revamping.
To share like your website, like where people can contact you and work with you.
Yeah, so my website is johnnyarmstead.com. JONNY. Let's see. I'll actually even type it down for you right here. And that's my website, and on it, it shows like the work that I do, these transformations that I enact in my clients, to where they go from, you know, powerless and lacking self-confidence to extremely powerful, wise, valuable for themselves, their loved ones, their communities, which in effect makes you very attractive to the people that you want to be attractive to, the most beautiful, high-quality women if you're a man. And if you're a woman, don't be afraid to reach out. We're just going to need to talk a little bit more about where you're coming from. The stuff in the nervous system works the same way, so I'm open to hearing from you. And as far as on Facebook, also, I can put like a link below. I believe that my yeah, you just search, let's see, I'll put it on here, Johnny Wild Armstead on Facebook, and on Instagram. I'm sure you should see me here, but it's Johnny Wild, JONNY _ WYLD. That's on Instagram, and yeah, follow me on those. Check out my website if you want to see have a deeper look. I also have a YouTube channel as well. I can put that as well. Let's see, youtube.com/username/ maybe I messed it up. I don't know. Probably messed it up. So yeah, so anyways, like that's horrible, but you can search that, you can search that's not going to be a usable link, but you can search the Juan Appleseed or the Johnny Wild Kundalini on YouTube as well, and that's where you're going to get a backlog of all these downloads and the content that are really going to help you transform to the person that you don't even know that you want to be, because there's an ancestral sort of like power and strength and connectedness associated with that. So if any of that sounds good to you, make sure to follow me on all those things. And I'm glad that you listened today, and I hope you got some tremendous value. If you have any questions, make sure to post them below. We're going to save this too. If you have any friends that you'd like to tag, who'd like to see this live video later, make sure to do that for sure, because this is about to pop off, and we gotta spread this consciousness and spread this healing and spread this growth, everyone. So yeah, I'm Johnny Wild, and thank you, Katinka, for having me on.